Today I'm gonna show you how I prepare my motorcycle for the riding season. The first thing that you would have to do, and this is why you're still in the garage, you check the floor, see if there are any obvious oil leaks, coolant leaks. There is nothing on the floor, and we're gonna take the bike outside. So now that we have the bike in the daylight, we can have a better look at it. Check for obvious oil leaks, and we don't have any. We're gonna have to check the oil level. The oil level is right, and what you want to see is golden oil. If it's black, really would need changing. I usually do mine every year, even though I don't reach the service interval. I'm gonna look around the radiator for any obvious coolant leaks. Check the hoses, check underneath the water pump as well. There are no apparent leaks. The hoses, make sure they don't have any cracks, they haven't been rubbing on anything. After you checked that there are no leaks, make sure that the coolant is at the right level. On this bike it's a little bit awkward to check. Hopefully yours is easier to inspect. Now we will check the brake fluid. Brake fluid should be nice and golden, clear golden color. Sure it's at the right level. The same with the rear, make sure it's at the right level. Your fluid would be low if your pads are low. If your brake fluid is low, it doesn't really mean always that you have to top it up. The situation would be rare where you would have to top your brake fluid up. It would be only if you have a leak. Now that we checked the level of the brake fluid, we would check the brake hoses for any cracks, leaks, and there are any. We're gonna check the condition of the disc. Sitting a long time usually makes it a bit rusty, and it has. So some people might say that you should just ride the bike and the disc would be cleaned when you're putting the brakes on, but that would just contaminate the pads. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna clean this disc with a scuff pad and some brake cleaner. So we're gonna spray brake cleaner on the disc. And now we take the scuff pad. Now that we finished cleaning the disc with the scuff pad, we're just gonna rinse with more brake cleaner. And after that, usually what I do, I just get a clean paper towel and I just wipe it off. After that, check the condition of your brake pads. See how much of the brake pad you actually have left. Mine are still pretty good. If you want, you could take off the caliper and clean the caliper and pads. I would recommend doing that. And after you finished, make sure that you do the same on the rear brake. And on my bike specifically, the rear is actually worse than the front. Next, we're gonna check the tires, make sure there are no cracks, make sure that the tread level is optimal for riding and legal depending on your region. We're gonna check the pressure in the tire as well. This is supposed to be at 2 bar and it's just under that. So we're gonna have to inflate this tire. I'm gonna check the level again. And it's exactly at 2, so that's perfect. After you check the tires and the pressures, make sure that the rims have no cracks in them, and if you have spoked wheels, make sure that the spokes are set to the right tension. Thankfully this bike doesn't have that. Now in the front we would check the suspension, front suspension. We would check that this dust seal has no cracks and there is no oil on the actual fork. So we're checking for oil leaks in the suspension. These look in very good condition. As the rear, make sure there is no oil, doesn't appear to be any leaks. So after you check the oil, coolant and brake fluid, the last fluid that you would have to check is if you have a hydraulic clutch. You would check that. This doesn't have a hydraulic clutch, so I can't show you how to do it, but it's basically the same thing. Just check for leaks, and it has a reservoir exactly like the brake fluid reservoir where you can check the condition and level of the fluid. Now what I would do, I would check these caliper bolts and all the major bolts that holds like safety components. Anything that might rattle loose, I would just make sure they're tightened to the right spec. What I'm trying to say is you should once in a while check all your nuts and bolts, make sure that everything's tightened. And I usually take this occasion, the start of the season, to do all my checks on the bike. We're gonna check all of these wires on the engine, make sure that we didn't have any furry friends chewing on these during the winter. Make sure you don't see any exposed wires, any leaks, any fuel leaks. It looks like we're good. After you've done that, we're gonna check all the cables. So on this bike we have a manual throttle. It's not throttle by wire. And we have a manual clutch. It's not an automatic, it's a manual transmission bike. We're gonna look at the cables. These cables look very good, there is no rust on them. And we're just gonna see if the throttle springs back nicely, so it's not getting stuck. And the same, you can see, the same with the clutch. Make sure it springs back nicely and all the way, and make sure that the clutch is adjusted to your manufacturer's specific requirements. You can find that in your user manual. It has to have a bit of play. Make sure on the engine side it moves freely as well. Check the routing. Make sure again that the wires are not pinched anywhere. They haven't rubbed through anywhere. These look in good condition. These cables are supposed to be lubricated. I usually do it every 2 years, but that's what I'm doing on my own personal bikes. You can do it as often as you like. Some people don't do it at all. Just want to say, if you guys enjoy my videos, please subscribe, like and comment. If you're already subscribed, I do appreciate you being subscribed, but still like and comment. If you have the bike in a dusty shed or your garage is dusty, I would recommend washing your bike, because you don't want to rub all that dust and grime on your paint job. Now another thing that you should do, if you drained your fuel before storing the bike, which is highly recommended, you should put fresh fuel in the tank, which I'm gonna do now. Now that we have fresh fuel in the bike, the only thing left is to crank it, but I don't have a battery because I took it out and I had it inside the house during the winter, and I do hope that you did the same. When you prepare your bike for the winter, you should take the battery off your bike, take it inside the house, leaving it in a cool, dry place. And I do charge it once in a while, make sure it's charged up. And now before installing it, check the battery terminals, make sure that they have no grime and no rust on them. This battery is quite clean, and we're gonna install this on the bike. And I would just like to say, for the person that designed this battery compartment, I think a lot of Honda owners hate you with a passion. Okay, now that we have the battery installed and the seat is back in, we have fresh fuel. I'm gonna put the ignition on. Fires up, first go. And now what we're gonna have to check, we're gonna check all the lights, indicators, the horn, brake light, everything, that all the electronics are working properly. We're gonna test first the front lights. So as we can see, the running lights are working, low beam is working. We'll test the high beam. High beam seems to be working. We're gonna test the pass. Seems to be working fine. Indicators. Now that all the lights in the front are fine, we're gonna test the horn. Horn is working. We're gonna test the rear lights. Front brake is working. We're gonna test the rear brake. Rear brake is working. Indicators. Make sure that the number plate light is working as well. Another thing that you should check while the bike is running, take it off the side stand, put it in first gear, and then put the side stand down. The engine should die. It's a safety thing and it does work. Just gonna leave it running. So now we're gonna leave it running for a few minutes. We're gonna check for strange noises coming from the engine, any leaks, oil, coolant. And finally we're gonna check the oil level after letting it run for, like I said, a few minutes. So now that you left your bike running for a while, I usually leave it to run until the cooling fan kicks in. No leaks, there's just a bit of condensation from the exhaust, which is normal. I'm gonna stop the engine. And last thing to do is to adjust and lubricate your chain. After you did all that, it's time to go for a test ride. When you do a test ride of this kind, don't just go around the block. Make sure that you do quite a few miles. It's quite a bit of traffic today. So make sure when you go out on this test ride, you don't wear earplugs or any type of headphones, because you want to listen for any strange noises, you want to feel for any strange vibrations. Look at the dash, make sure that when you indicate or change gear, put it into neutral, that everything shows properly. Let's make sure that the gauge works as it should. Go through all the gears, make sure that the bike changes gears properly. Get a feel for the brakes, and when you're riding, just let the engine reach running temperature, and then try to give it a few pulls, and have a feel for the health of the engine. Should pull fine, especially if you put fresh fuel in it. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe, like and comment. If you're already subscribed, I do appreciate you being subscribed, but hit that like button and write a comment as well.